Macau, the gambling capital of the world. Macau generates more revenue from gambling than both Las Vegas and Monte Carlo. Tourism makes up most of Macau's income. In a similar vein to Hong Kong, Macau is an autonomous area under Chinese sovereignty formerly controlled by Portugal. Macau was actually the last European colony in Asia, Portugal having relinquished control in 1999. How did Portuguese rule impact Macau? Since the 5th century AD, the area we know today as Macau was used by Asian sailors as a supply station and a place of refuge. In fact, the first recorded settlement of Macau took place in 1277 when 50,000 people arrived as refugees fleeing from the onslaught of the Mongols. The Portuguese first arrived in China in the 16th century, landing in the Pearl River Delta. Soon, relations between the Chinese and the Portuguese soured, and later Portuguese missions were turned away by the Ming dynasty. In the 1540s, relations between the Ming dynasty and the Portuguese normalized. External factors would work in Portugal's favor too. China came under threat from pirates off her coast and also from Japan, Korea, and Mongolia. The Portuguese were adept at warding off the pirates. In 1557, Portugal acquired Macau. The Portuguese were to pay an annual rent in silver to the Chinese in order to operate trading posts there. Also, with a trading post at the mouth of the Pearl River, the route upriver was essentially blocked off to foreign access. It was thus the first European colony established in East Asia. Macau's name comes from Amagao, in honor of the Chinese patron goddess of sailors, Ama. A Taoist temple dedicated to Ama was constructed in the 15th century. For more than a century, the port of Macau thrived as an entrepot connecting East Asia with the rest of the world. It was not until the arrival of the Portuguese that it began to develop into a major settlement. Prior to this, Macau was a small fishing village. Traders in Macau would export Chinese slaves to faraway lands and were able to exercise control over the trade of silk, jewelry, porcelain, and textiles to Japan, India, and to Europe. Flowing into mainland China through Macau were African slaves, silver, ivory, opium, spices, and other goods. The other European powers were not ignorant of Macau's strategic importance. In the early 16th century, the Dutch attempted to seize control of Macau from the Portuguese. In 1622, the Dutch even launched a full-scale invasion of Macau. 800 Dutch troops fighting alongside Japanese and Bandinese mercenaries landed at Cacilhas Beach. The invasion had initially gone well for the Dutch attackers as the Portuguese defenders were both outnumbered and outgunned. As the Dutch force proceeded toward the city, a Portuguese cannon struck a barrel of gunpowder close to the Dutch formation, inflicting many casualties. The Portuguese thus regained the initiative and fended off the Dutch. According to historians' figures, the casualties were heavily lopsided in favor of the Portuguese, who sustained minimal losses, compared to the approximately 300 losses on the opposing side. Having been sobered by this experience, the Portuguese constructed Gia Fortress to upgrade Macau's defenses. Macau was also a bastion of Christianity in East Asia. St. Francis Xavier converted a large number of Chinese and Japanese people to Christianity, using Macau as his base of operations. St. Francis Xavier was one of the original founders of the Society of Jesus, or Jesuits. In the 16th and 17th centuries, several churches and even a Christian college were constructed. These churches can still be seen in Macau today. Macau does not recognize an official state religion and guarantees religious freedom to all its citizens. Most people in Macau practice either Chinese folk religions or Buddhism. According to 2019 figures, around 5.2% of people are Roman Catholic. A 2019 Foreign Policy article stated, "To be sure, Macau's colonial history is just one factor in the territory's relative quietude. As many scholars point out, demographics are a factor. Macau's population is less than 1/10 that of Hong Kong, making it much more susceptible to economic and socio-political forces such as investment and migration." The article goes on to say, "Yet having lived through centuries under the increasingly disinterested rule of Portugal, few Macau residents today long for the days under what University of Hawaii professor Catherine Clayton referred to as Lisbon's hapless imperialism." It should be noted that this article was penned during the 2019 Hong Kong protests. Even after obtaining the right to occupy the area from Qing China in the 1880s, Portuguese rule in Macau was constantly threatened by organized crime entities, bandits, and by a number of mainland governments. Portuguese control over Macau had been dealt a mortal blow by the 12-3 incident in 1966. Anti-government riots instigated by Maoists from mainland China resulted in several deaths and arrests, culminating in de facto Chinese control over Macau for the next 3 decades. An October 2018 Reuters article said, "These days, the only real remaining elements of Portuguese influence are colonial architecture and its distinctive cuisine." Portuguese and Chinese are both official languages in Macau, but there are signs that Chinese is being prioritized in government. Only 10% of Macau's jurists are of Portuguese origin as of 2018. One of Macau's former mayors said that, "We have to see that there is this formula, one country, two systems, and the real meaning of that is one country." Macau, like Hong Kong, was a vestige of European colonialism in East Asia. Today, Macau is under the thumb of Beijing, and Beijing is looking to further consolidate its control over Macau as time goes on. The memory of Portuguese colonialism in Macau does not hold as much power as that of British rule in Hong Kong. What do you guys think? What will Macau look like in the next 10 to 20 years? How will Portugal's relationship with Macau evolve in the future? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.